Well, I would like to pick up. This is episode 3. Kind of with graduation and then moving forward onto kind of military service. So you're young. You guys are in your second apartment. So probably the last, finishing up school wasn't too tough, I would imagine. So what kind of happened? Seeing as you didn't finish together.
I finished.
Yeah, she's finished in 4 years, and I finished in 5 because I changed majors. And we moved that summer after she graduated out to Dansville in the upstairs of a farmhouse. And that's where
It was cool. They had made it into an apartment, and it was new. And it was...
At least you're getting better with apartment choices.
Yeah, we were. I don't remember how much we paid for that one, do you?
No, I
It
don't.
was
Yeah.
$45.
It wasn't a lot.
Somewhere
but
in
it was,
between.
It was probably...
and it was an old farmhouse,
Yeah.
but they had redone the upstairs. So,
And I taught second grade in Dansville.
and I
he
went back and
finished.
forth. I took a scuba diving class in the women's IM building. Winter term, that was really smart.
Yeah.
And I had to walk from the IM building, clear over to the business building, which was ridiculous.
My impression of Michigan State's campus is that it's freezing in the winter.
Yeah.
It
Really?
was beautiful. Yeah, but I don't think they let the women wear slacks then even.
Oh.
So you were in dresses and skirts and stuff.
Yeah, and I
Oh,
froze
that's terrible.
because you had to go really far. I think I had to.
Because we were driving in and parking in
Yeah.
the parking, which was, 4 or 5 blocks from wherever we
Well, it was probably even 30,000 students then.
33.
It's big.
33,000.
I think it's up to 40 something.
Yeah. It was
But,
huge.
So
Anyway,
you
after-
graduated and worked.
and then when he graduated, then we went to Peace Corps.
Well, yeah. Because we
Yeah.
got pictures of filling out the
Well, we went.
application.
We went to Peace Corps, but we chickened out in the end and didn't quite finish.
University of Oklahoma in Norman. And I think we got there a couple days before, I think right at the beginning of July. And 4th of July was quite a impressive deal.
Because we were high up in the.
We stayed in one of the
Dorms and
dorms,
stuff.
like on
We
the
could see all the
7th or 8th or 9th floor, I forget which.
Hmm.
And we were married, of course. And
What was interesting is that the Wycliffe Bible translators had a training thing there, but they weren't staying in the dorms. They were
they
staying
were
in huts.
in these old Quonset huts from World War II that just, and I don't know why they were there at this point, because
some
you're
kind of
talking
They were on the college campus.
you're talking mid 60s now, and these were from World War II. Yeah.
So, well, maybe, you could purchase the rights to be there on a summer.
Yeah, or
Because
something like
They were
that.
over
training
summer
them-
because you're
I mean, we'd
training.
never-
But they had no air conditioning. They were, it was bad.
But we had no idea that eventually Grandpa and Grandma Nowlin would work with Wycliffe Bible translators.
Another connection.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was funny.
Huh.
But it was very hard training.
So I remember a picture of you guys coming off of the gymnasium doing rappelling.
Oh,
Right.
yes.
So why would you rappel in the Peace Corps?
We were getting, well, they had decided that they wanted to test. I mean, I don't know how many different countries. Each country had its own program. And it happened that El Salvador, which was where we were looking, and South America, Colombia, were the 2 countries at Oklahoma. And they had decided that they wanted to test this outward bound program for training. And so our 2 groups got it. And they had the swimming, which you've heard about,
But that rappelling
and the rappelling. That was,
scared me half to death. Because it was way up high in the stadium, and they had this little platform kind of hung over the edge, and you'd have to go up there, and they had a rope over your shoulder, kind of, and you had to face forward towards the stadium and lean backwards until you were perpendicular with the wall, and then jump off. And it's like, I'm supposed to lean backwards with this little rope over my
and that was
shoulder.
all you felt.
it scared. I mean, they literally had to talk me down.
They did. I've got pictures where I'm clear down at the end of all the people, and then I moved, and I took some, and then I moved. I kept getting closer to her.
I mean, that was the scariest thing I had ever done, and we did it 3 times, and it didn't get any better. It was once my feet got on the wall, and
Yeah,
then you
kinda
let
have
the rope
some
out. Yeah,
sense of
but
stability.
leaning into nothingness. I mean, I still.
But you,
And most of the stuff that we did had some aspect of that. I mean, the swimming that we did was with our hands and feet tied,
It was,
and stuff like
crazy.
that. So it was.
It was a little bit like SEAL training.
They were.
he said his
creating,
basic training
Wasn't as bad.
was
not
not
as bad.
No way.
Wow.
Because you got to
Grandma was a SEAL.
if you got to the end of the training and you thought if they told you to push over the wall, you could push over the wall.
Yeah.
But yeah, but the language,
that's
couldn't-
what stopped you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
couldn't quite get over the language.
We actually, the end of the course, it was in Mexico.
Well, and let me ask you this, because did you guys have language requirements coming through high school and college?
No,
No.
we had nothing.
Because
And I've not
pretty
heard-
much everybody does now.
You did.
Exactly.
You did.
Everybody I have ever talked to has said, everybody does.
Because you would have probably taken Spanish or French.
Probably, but we didn't.
No, we didn't.
We had a crash course.
Even then, we didn't.
made 6 hours a day, and we still were not good. I mean, we really were bad, both of us.
Well, it was,
I don't think I hear the stuff well.
and it may have been the way they were teaching it too. It may not have. It was a new program.
Yeah.
I mean, this was in the '60s, and it was just starting.
But I kind of got in trouble. We had a substitute teacher one day, and she said, if you don't understand what I'm saying, raise your hand. So I
She was teaching an upper level
raised
course.
my hand and kept it up. She got
She didn't
kind of
like
mad.
it.
No, she
No.
did not like it.
No, that did not go over
I think
well.
another girl did it with me.
Yeah,
We looked at
there
each
were a
other and we
couple of
both
them.
raised our hand.
I got nothing.
What are you saying?
I really couldn't understand her. She didn't know how dumb we were.
That's right.
But anyway,
But then you ended up in country training.
We went
to Mexico.
into Mexico, into Mexico City, flew in there, and then the guys went to Veracruz and the gals went to Toluca, which is a small town outside of Mexico City. And then a week later, they joined us in Veracruz, and after they came, we went out into the boondocks to this little village,
Like
and
being in Africa.
yeah,
Really.
the pictures, I could show you the pictures that I took there, and you would think it was Africa.
I don't think I've ever
But-
seen those.
At some point, before, the last thing that we were supposed to do was leave Veracruz, and on the way back to Mexico City, where we were going to catch the flight, they were going to have us stay at some little town on the way for a week.
We had to find our own way. Had to find our own
Get on the
place to
bus,
stay.
go there, stop, find a place to stay, talk, and do this little project. And the project was something to make you speak Spanish. You could ask a question of everybody in the town or whatever. But at first, I was going with a guy who played center for Boston College football.
Oh, wow.
And he was a Spanish
Spanish
major, and she
And
was
I
going.
had a Spanish major partner too.
Yeah, and then
We were
at
gonna
the
do it.
last minute they changed their mind and said, "No, you're going together."
They put you two together?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
and we bailed because neither one of us could even talk to the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like,
So that was a little bit of providence. God
It-
says,
yeah.
no, you're not
Yeah.
doing it.
and as it turned
You're right,
out,
because we would have.
we came back, and I ended up going into the Air Force. They came back after 2 years of service, and it had been a gentleman's agreement between Peace Corps and Air Force or military that they wouldn't, and they hadn't, but they did because Vietnam was just starting.
So they
It was
didn't-
66, and they were just starting, and all of a sudden they had to.
They had to go military too.
Yeah,
But it felt like a terrible failure.
Oh.
I mean, it was depressing.
neither one of us had ever felt like we
We
had
felt
failed.
Yeah.
to that extent. It was just devastating.
Because I really think we were stars in the program up until that point.
Yeah, I
They
mean,
could scale tall buildings with a single bound, even though they were frightened.
I was one of two that went all the way through the swimming thing, where most of them stopped halfway
Yeah.
and couldn't get any further.
Wow.
It was crazy, but
We didn't tell you this before, but the reason we were rappelling in the, off the thing,
Yeah,
but we
the
also
stadium.
did it in the gym
we
first. and
started
then
with
we
it
went up.
doing it just down
And
a
then we
board
went on a 3-day thing in the wilderness.
Yeah.
and actually did
Actually
recover.
rappelled
Outside.
off a mountain.
Yeah.
That wasn't half as bad.
Really? Huh.
No, because the mountains kind of go like
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
and the wall went like that.
Huh.
Yeah.
But that was the 3-day wilderness was a,
So God moved you out of that program.
He did.
I mean, you see that now.
yeah.
And
You went into the Air Force.
I came back and
Oh, you went to
got a
Europe?
job
in Dearborn
with
first.
Ernst and Ernst down in Detroit, and we start. I mean, it was almost the end of September when we came back, so I was late in starting as far as the ones who had graduated, but there it was. I got the job, and I was going out with one of the senior guys on audits, and they would be about a week long. Well, October and November, by the end of November, I had gotten a letter from the draft board saying, you need to take your physical. Well, I'm still going out in the morning or all day with doing the
Audit.
audits. And okay, we'll let you go. So I went like at 9 o'clock down there all day. All day. It didn't
Swolby
take
may
an
know about that.
Huh?
Swolby may know about
Yeah.
that.
And I mean, it was nasty. And I ended up getting, when it came to taking my blood pressure, and my blood pressure was high. So they said, okay, we've got to have you redo the blood pressure. You need to come down and we'll take your blood pressure, and you need to do this for 5 days.
Oh.
Well, I went the first day, and it took 4 hours to get through to the point where they did it. And I mean, it only took 15 minutes at the most
Yeah, to
to
sit
do,
down and do it.
But and then I said I can't do it, and so then I was a 1A, and I was going
Which means
to be drafted. 1A is the top.
that you're qualified.
You're fully qualified, and you're in the next group to go.
Yikes.
And I was
and then
I was teaching
she got
again
pregnant.
in Dearborn. I was substituting. It's awful. I was substituting. Even back then, one of the guys had a gun in school and stuff. It was a really not good
Where were you?
district. Dearborn
Wayne.
Heights.
Yeah,
Oh,
Dearborn Heights and
okay.
Wayne and
Huh.
and
Anyway, and then
Inkster and
to make it long story short, I was pregnant, so he got a deferment, and he tried to get into the
Air Force.
Air Force because he had his college degree. He wanted to be an officer, and finally, he did. And that's when I
Then
got,
she miscarried,
yeah.
and there went my reason for. And so I was 1A again.
Yeah.
And by the time they turned around and got all the paperwork right, it was coming up on September. And by then I finally got enrolled correctly or whatever, and I left and went to training. He called back and said, I made it. She wasn't there. Talked to Grandma,
I think
and
it,
she was in the hospital.
I think it was about a week after that. It wasn't
No.
quite that fast.
But it may
No.
still have been the first phone call that they'll let you have.
We didn't have.
Okay.
I mean, it had to be the first day because we only got that one, and then we didn't get
Okay.
another phone call for like
Okay.
6 weeks. So
But
anyway,
So you're already kind of being harangued by drill instructors and
oh yeah,
Nowlin, get your phone call in. And
We
you
got
call
that.
person to person to Diane Nowlin, and you get Grandma.
yeah. And the worst times were waiting in line for meals because
you
they
didn't
could
finish,
only
you
put.
didn't finish with the telephone call first time.
Well, she said she was in the hospital, and then they disconnected us because it was a person-to-person call, and she wasn't there. So then I called back.
How did you wrangle that? Because you didn't connect with who you were supposed to.
I didn't
Did the
have money.
But did the military say, yeah, you can have a second call?
Well, I just did it.
Okay.
I mean, it was my turn, and I got cut off.
Oh, so you did it right then?
Yeah,
Okay.
immediately. I called back immediately because they cut it, and so I called back person to person, and they accepted the charge that they paid for.
Oh,
it.
okay.
And so then I got to
The whole
find
story.
out. Oh, she's in the hospital and she's pregnant, and
it was a bad pregnancy. I couldn't keep anything down. So I ended up in the hospital, and it was Mr.
and
Greg.
it was you.
Yeah, well,
How long were you in
It
the
was worth it, though.
How long were you in the hospital?
Maybe a couple weeks, but I was so weak.
Couldn't walk.
I couldn't walk. And one of the nurses came in, and I had been having sponge baths, and she says, "Oh, you can get up and take a shower." So I started down the hall, and pretty soon I'm sliding down the wall. And a nurse came up who knew me personally
Sitting
from
on
the
the floor.
church, and what's wrong? I can't walk. Anyway, I was really, really weak. It was crazy.
Huh.
Crazy. I thought I'd never walk again.
And it wasn't until I found a med
Yeah,
that she could.
that helped me. First I had shots. I got home, went home to my folks' house, and the neighbor would give me shots of a certain medicine, and then he changed the medicine and it was better. But it was 5 months before I really could keep
Food down.
much food down.
and did that happen with Jeff and Kristen?
Yeah, until they got the medicine.
But I knew immediately because I started throwing up. I mean, I was about a week pregnant or something.
Wow.
And so I'd go into the Air Force person and say, "I need this medicine," and they'd give it to me. So otherwise,
And then they took the medicine off the market.
Wasn't the thalidomide, was it?
no, but it was.
Have all my parts.
It was that time frame, though.
Oh,
Yeah, they said it caused birth defects.
Huh.
So, but when I went to the doctor, I
that
said,
explains a lot.
"Well, Jeff primes all his bones up."
Yeah, constantly.
But I would go in and I said, "I have a toddler at home. I have got to have this medicine."
Oh, man.
So I did. So I got through it.
Well, so you got through training. I guess I was born in Chanute.
You were born in Chanute, and then we were stationed in Albuquerque for 4
And we
years.
took you to Albuquerque.
Went to Washington, D.C. for 1 year.
And you probably had
Wait.
something better than the
I'll come back.
better than the VW, or
Oh, yeah, by then we had
We did. We had a white. What was it? It had, had red.
Chevy
It was pretty.
yeah,
Malibu.
cool. So
When
hit-
we got air conditioning put in. So, but when we got to Albuquerque, it was cold and rainy.
It
We
rained
never used our air conditioning.
on the drive.
Yeah. And we did later.
We were there 4 years, and I was a squadron commander the week after I became a first lieutenant, and it was a major's position. We had 3 squadrons and 3 major that were squadron commanders, and we were running it with first lieutenants
just because they had to go to Nam.
because they were already in Nam. Yeah,
Huh.
yeah.
Wow. So you're 25 and in charge of a squadron.
He was.
60 guys,
I remember him
and all the planes.
getting called up to go to jail and get one of the airmen out.
Really?
Really?
with my first sergeant.
Yeah.
So was that where you ended up at a staff meeting and the group commander locked the door and you weren't on time?
I don't
He
remember
wasn't
that one.
he was the chief of maintenance,
Oh, okay.
and he was lieutenant colonel.
Okay.
He had been enlisted first. I think he'd been in the tail end of World War II, because there were a couple civilians there that had also been, 18-year-olds in the Army in World War II that knew everything, and the smart guys, listened to them and followed them around instead of trying to tell them what to do. So, yeah.
Did you get locked out of a meeting?
I got locked out of the meeting. We were
I
like
don't ever remember.
we were
doing
like
that.
we had an 8 o'clock meeting every morning where we would go over all of the airplanes that were broken and whether they had been fixed or what they were waiting for. And it was just a review meeting so that we knew what we had to put our energy into to get things going. And we were a little bit late and the door was locked. And so we had to go around to the colonel's office, go into his secretary's office, which had a door into the conference room. And we came in that way, and he was sitting right there at the door. When we opened the door, he was facing the everybody, and we walked
Who's
in.
we?
This chief master sergeant,
Okay.
and
His people.
yeah, my guy. And we went in and sat down, and it was not pretty.
Well, I actually used that story to make sure I was never late for one of those meetings.
How come
Yeah.
how come, you probably never told me.
Oh, at the time you were more interested in the kids.
Well, yeah, because we had Kristen there and Jeff
Jeff.
there.
Yeah.
So we had 3 kids in 2 years and 10 months. I did figure that out again. It's right.
Yeah.
And this was during Vietnam.
Right.
Okay, I had 3 different sets of orders
Yes.
in the 8 years I was in for Vietnam or Thailand, and something happened each time to where they got
Amazing.
canceled.
Yeah, it was really.
So we went from there. We went to Washington D.C. for a year, and I was actually in Systems Command headquarters. And I was working not in aircraft maintenance because they didn't do it there. I was in personnel for a year, and then we went to Germany.
Yes, we did.
Well, let's come back to Germany here in a bit. We can take a quick break, and yeah, because that's when we probably start remembering
Remembering, yeah.
some things.
I don't remember a lot from Germany.
Don't ya?
You remember
But-
the buildings that are all?
The only thing I really remember is having to stop, face a certain direction when the revelry would play.
Well,
Is that what you call it?
well,
Oh, you're right.
They in the morning.
Yeah.
It's kind of what I remember.
You were only 4 when we moved there.
Yeah, and you stopped and you faced wherever the flag was,
Yep.
Yeah, at the time.
Remember?
even if you couldn't see it.
Yep.
Okay. Well, we'll come back and do that.